welcome back to another weekly fighting roundup. And if you are new around here though and you haven't yet subscribed, please do so. Like video if you do need like video, and let's get straight into it. So starting off with the boxing as per usual. So Hearn has made an offer for Smith versus Eubank. Eubank is set to fight Ben February 3rd at Spurs Stadium. Paul has retired from boxing, that being Logan Paul, stating that he is now no longer wanting to be doing that, which doesn't really come as a surprise to me, to be completely honest. Toewood, Marksby and Waters will fight December 16th. Hoji, I can't pronounce. Okay, Sehaji Mosley Jr., Fulgham, Stevens, Cabrera and Garcia will fight December 2nd. Torres Jr. will fight Harper December 9th. Jonas versus Mayer and Cullen versus Chelly will fight January 20th. That's a good women's main event, to be fair, one that could make into a very good fight. Top Rank has partnered with Venom. Boatsi will fight Aziz February 3rd, that being now rescheduled to them. Barboza Jr. has joined Golden Boy. Hopefully that means that he's actually going to be getting half decent fights now. I don't know for certain though, to be completely honest, with the way that Golden Boy's going. Aaron wants Lopez versus Garcia in February. Of course, if Garcia gets through his fight in a couple of weeks' time. Ngannou has entered the WBC top 10 heavyweight rankings. Danis has retired from boxing, or so he claims. The WBC have ordered the winner of Haney vs Prograis to fight Martin. Joshua is working with Davison, a new coach yet again he's working with. I don't know if that's really the good idea. It seems like he had a kind of plan set out with, I forgot his name, the coach he had it before, but obviously now it's kind of all gone away, and now he's got Davison coming in, who of course is an elite level coach, but I just don't know if that's the best idea ahead of another big fight, which I'm going to talk about in just a moment. Foster has joined Top Rank. Opataya versus Zorro, Makhmudov versus Caballero, Hrgovic versus Demori, Sanchez versus Farr, Dubois versus Miller, Bivol versus Arthur, Wilder versus Parker, and Joshua versus Wallen will fight December 23rd. What an amazing card that is. Probably, like people have been saying, the best ever boxing card. And of course, if anybody was going to make it, it would be the Saudis. And so fair play to them. It's been kind of saving boxing to an extent. People are discrediting the fights on the cards, and certain people are saying that they're kind of mismatches, and that of course the main event, what Wilder and Joshua, of course they should be fighting each other, and it's kind of a piss take to an extent that they're not, but they're also on the same card at the same time. But I mean, it could be, like everybody's saying, little slip-ups for either of them could end up happening. I mean, Wilder has got a tough opposition in Parker. I think he's going to be able to get through that. But Joshua versus Wallen could be a very difficult fight for Joshua. The way that Wallen's been going and the way that he does fight in general is just very difficult for every type of opponent. And he's coming off a big win himself, and he's kind of got no real pressure going into this fight. And so that could be a tough fight. And then moving on down the card, Dubois versus Miller is going to be a great fight. It would be interesting to see if Miller just kind of gasses himself out early, and if Dubois can weather that possible storm, and if Dubois can actually outwork him then, and coming off his defeat versus Usyk. Hrgovic versus Demori, it's an interesting fight. I mean, it's interesting to see that Hrgovic isn't just fighting Sanchez. I mean, Sanchez has got far, and I'm sure Sanchez should be able to get through that. Makhmudov Caballero, that is a good fight, a good step up for Makhmudov. Opataya versus Zorro, I feel like that's a big mismatch, to be completely honest. Opataya, I really rate. And Bivol Arthur is probably a mismatch, but I think that's a bit more of a fairer match than what I would say Opataya Zorro is. But like I said, an amazing card, one of the best ever cards we'd seen, and I can't wait for it, to be completely honest. The winner of Bivol versus Arthur is set to fight Beterbiev. WBC is set to order Charlo versus Adamus. Fury will fight Usyk February 17th. That has also finally been announced. What a week it's been for boxing, and heavyweight boxing especially, with these fights all getting announced. And now Fury Usyk's finally been announced, and it's, like I said probably 10 million times before, it's the most important fight in boxing, and it's the one that matters the most at the moment, and it's going to have the most eyes on it, and it's finally happening. Well, fingers crossed. nothing gets in the way of it now after all the time we've been waiting for it. And now we finally are going to be able to see it come February 17th, which is still, to be fair, a little bit away. Things could stop from happening before then, but we've got to keep our fingers crossed that it doesn't. And this is the closest we've been so far. Gibb has retired apparently from YouTube boxing. Mayweather will rematch Gotti 3. Gorman will fight Myronets December 1st. McGregor versus Lowe is off. Fury will fight December 1st. Ryder is set to fight Munguia in January. Yafai has retired. Saunders has teamed up with 365 Boxing Management. Hearn wants Scotney versus Cruz. Most Valuable Promotions want to make Gibb versus Slim, so I don't know if Gibb has actually retired or not. He's probably just waiting for a big fight that's not on Misfits. Patel will fight Solis December 19th. Myers won by a TK in round 1 versus Milev. Lewis won by a KO in round 3 versus Garol. Walsh won by a points versus Arrowsmith. Congratulations to Walsh. I'm on the channel a little while ago now, progressing very well. Jolly won by a TK in round 1 versus Hawes. Boyle won via points versus Borisov. Walsh won by TK in round 2 versus Tankos. Oh no, that was the Walsh we spoke to. My apologies. Ward won by TK in round 2 versus McNarty. McGivern won by unanimous decision versus Sandford to become a Celtic lightweight champion. McAuliffe won by stoppage in round 4 versus Oddabai. Murray won by unanimous decision versus Torres. Vargas won by a KO in round 2 versus Mendoza. Mason won by TK in round 2 versus Cardenas. Sarchiotto won by TKO in round 3 versus Abreu. Isley won via unanimous decision versus Hernandez. Diaz won via split decision versus Ornelas to become a WBC Youth World Bantamweight Champion. Norman Jr. won via unanimous decision versus Randall. Navarrete drew versus Conceição. Stevenson's won via unanimous decision versus Los Santos to become a WBC World Lightweight Champion. So to speak about the two kind of big main fights on that card, I mean, Navarrete, Conceição was a great fight, and fair play to Conceição. I mean, he's kind of come in as a big underdog and really proved a point and put on a great fight versus Navarrete. Navarrete, his style is always going to be entertaining, and he's always going to be in these entertaining fights. But I do feel like at times he goes into these fights possibly just not with the right game plan, and just comes in, overlooks his opponent a bit, and just thinks he can get out of there, and just kind of, I don't know. There's a few times now I've seen that happen, and the Wilson fight was another example of that, where he just got into fights just maybe possibly getting a decision that he shouldn't realistically be getting at his level. And I would say Conceição's, I'm not discrediting Conceição. I mean, he put on a very good performance and really did kind of showcase that he is still at that top level and shouldn't be overlooked. And so fair play to him, and I'm sure they're going to run it back soon. And then the main event, Stevenson Los Santos. A lot of people were saying it was a snooze fest. A lot of people were sending hate towards Stevenson. It's one of them fights which I'm sure Stevenson's going to learn a lot from, even though it wasn't a defeat and he won. And obviously it wasn't really an entertaining fight. Stevenson didn't really do much, but realistically he didn't have to do much. And obviously he just kind of threw very minimal amounts of punches and just kind of worked her way around the ring and didn't really do too much. But at times, especially as a young fighter, we've kind of been used to seeing Stevenson just being so dominant and being so destructive, or not even just destructive, but just being able to outbox every opponent he's been in. And when he's at that level, you kind of don't have to necessarily take the risks. And I said it in my prediction, he's not overly aggressive as a fighter, and when you don't have to take them risks, then the risks, what's the point in taking them to an extent? You see a lot of fights just cruise through fights, and I feel like to an extent that's what he done. And when you are against somebody like Los Santos, who does carry a lot of power and can hurt opponents, it's fair enough to an extent that you don't want to commit too much. Obviously, he should have done a lot more to really kind of push the pace and possibly have gotten a stoppage, or even just outboxed him and put on a display of why he deserves the title. But to an extent, he's going to get more opponents now, and I mean, obviously he's going to get a lot of backlash, but he's got a world title there, and he's another champion and at another weight, and so, I mean, he's done what you have to do. So, I suppose to an extent, fair play to him. Kaysen won via KO in round 2 versus Budzielewski. Dapper last won via TK in round 1 versus Simon. Got that one right. Didn't think I predicted a Kaysen one. Brooks won via KO in round 2 versus Rhino. Got that one right. Yiddy Gang TV won via split decision versus Uncle Pizza. Got that one right. Arms won via unanimous decision versus Minicon. got that right. Silver won via majority decision versus Rose, got that right. Poker won by unanimous decision versus Vampira, got that right. Jarvis won by unanimous decision versus B-Dave, also got that right. I'm on a bit of a run at the moment with things. I mean, I got Stevenson one right, Navarrete one wrong, but I don't think anybody's predicting the draw for that one. But Jarvis, fair play to him. I mean, he put on a good performance to an extent. It wasn't anything crazily good. He got dragged into a fight a lot, and you kind of expect that from these lesser experienced fighters, and he's going to keep developing. I don't know if he has the makings to be a crazily good boxer, but he's got skill there, and he's obviously got a good team around him, so fair enough, fair play. Um, Poker, I was impressed with her. She looked very good, very resilient, gave it a rule. Really does throw with power, so fair play. And Arms, solid performance. I mean, it wasn't anything crazy. You don't really have to do anything crazy to be able to get a knockdown, and he got a knockdown, and I just don't know if he's got his gas tank, and I don't know how skillful he actually is, really. But Silver versus Rose was a very good fight. I think Silver did do enough to win, but Rose put on a very good showing as well, and I knew that would be a good fight. It was a necessary test for Silver, as he's not really been against somebody who's very resilient and wants to fight on the inside, as what Rose did. And so, yeah, congrats to him to getting the win, Silver, and I'm sure he's going to probably end up fighting Taylor now. But yeah, moving on. Thompson won via points versus Ocampo. Akbar won via points versus Flores. Come back to Akbar. I've only done it a little while ago now. Dacres won via majority decision versus Webster to remain English heavyweight champion. Congrats to Dacres. Spoke to him ahead of his last fight, I believe. Kozin won via split decision versus Rankin to become WBC and WBO World Super Welterweight Champion. Collins won via majority decision versus Miller to remain British and Commonwealth Featherweight Champion. Commiserations to Miller. Scarf won via unanimous decision versus Esserman to become British, Commonwealth and IBF European Welterweight Champion. Congrats to Scarf, a big win. I'll speak a bit more about the card in a moment. Davis won via TK in round 5 versus La Femina to remain European EBU European Super Bantamweight Champion. Heaney won via majority decision versus Bentley to become British Middleweight Champion. Ball won via unanimous decision versus Dogbo to remain WBC Featherweight Champion. And I mean, it was an interesting card. There were some close fights, there were some upsets, it had a lot of everything, to be fair. Dacres, wasn't the best performance, to be completely honest. I'm sad to see it wasn't the best. He could have lost, and he probably should have lost with the point deducted as well. He just did get outworked. Rankin, this is possibly going to be the end of her career now. I probably should have done a prediction. Apologies for not, because this is a world title fight that was. But Kozin, fair play. Collins versus Miller, that was a very close fight again. Miller's stock has not gone down from that, and it was a very good scrap. It probably won't be a rematch because they're gonna not really want to put Collins back in with Miller most likely, but I'm sure Miller's going to be able to rebuild from that, and Collins, I'm sure he's going to progress even more, but it's probably a necessary scrap for his career, and coming off a big KO, Collins is probably, his confidence is probably taking a bit of a knock, but to an extent, you see with these fights, they need that necessary knock to just come back down to reality to an extent. Scarf, great performance from him against the odds. People were not expecting him to be doing that, and he outworked him the whole time and just outboxed him, and Esserman wasn't at the level that Scarf was at. People were kind of slating Scarf's more dirtier performance, but he's always been like that, and that's kind of what he has to do, and it's not a bad thing. It's what you have to do to be able to get a win at times. Davis, fair play to him, a good stoppage against a tough opponent, and these European opponents can be levels above these British opponents at times, and he was coming off that victory versus Cunningham, first round stoppage, and I think he thought he could have done the same again and just got a bit greedy, got a bit carried away, and that's how he got dropped himself. But then he had a round off where he kind of just rebuilt himself and kind of got back into it again, and then he knew that in that next round, in the 5th round, he could outwork him and then be able to get the stoppage, so fair play. Heaney, great performance versus Bentley, really did outwork him and fought on the back foot well, and even on the inside fought quite well, and Bentley, he just looked off, he didn't throw much at all, and everybody was expecting him to have a kind of rabid performance where he just kind of outworked him, outboxed him and just outclassed him and stopped him, but Bentley just didn't really show much, and it's unlike him, and yeah, it was a bit disappointing from him, to be honest. Ball was a good performance from him. I really liked his work rate throughout the whole fight. He's always got them with them uppercuts as well, and just them general really good combinations in the inside. And Dogbo was always going to be a difficult step up for him, and yeah, I'm glad to see that he's kind of learned a lot from that. And against an opponent who is similar to him, it was necessary to have somebody similar to him when there's not really that many in the division that's that similar to him. And yeah, that was a good step up, and it'll be interesting to see where he goes from there on. Moving on, Power won via points versus Gomez. Gibbs drew versus Antona. Spoke to Gibbs before on this channel and then afterwards on BBTV. I was at this event. If you have not gone and watched the interviews on British Boxing TV, I would recommend going and watching them. They were good interviews. Got interviews with quite a lot of the fighters. Gibbs was one of them. Got a draw. I'm sure he's going to be able to bounce back from that and come back with a better fighter. Zamora won by points versus Chima. That was sad to see as well. Chima, unfortunate for him, had him on this channel a little while ago. Berry won by points versus Martinez. Very good performance from Berry. Strange that they put him on right at the very end, but fair play to him. We had him on this channel a little while ago. Riakpo won by TK in round 2 versus Brigion. I spoke to him afterwards. Great dominant stoppage against an opponent who, like I said in the interview, could have easily overlooked. Edwards won by points versus Foster. Spoke to Edwards afterwards after that very tough performance. Azim won via TK in round 10 versus Petitjean to become an EBU European Super Lightweight Champion. Spoke to him. Great performance from him. A really technical performance against his kind of tough guy that didn't really come to fight too much, and he just outworked him, outfought him, outboxed him on every level and just outclassed him. And at this sort of European level already, just outboxing opponents like that is just very impressive. Denny won by TK in round 8 versus Signani to become EBU European Middleweight Champion. Spoke to him afterwards and also spoke to him on the channel a little while ago. Great fighter, and it was an interesting stoppage, bit of a strange stoppage by the corner, and I know their corner was not happy about it at all, but Denny did what he had to do, and another gutsy performance from him. Azim is set to fight Paulson. Bazaldua won by KO in round 4 versus Cruz. Walker won by KO in round 2 versus Villegas. Castro won by KO in round 7 versus Fuenzalida. Rodriguez won via KO in round 1 versus Yafai to become WBA Intercontinental Bantamweight Champion. Cruz won via majority decision versus Rivas to become a WBA World Super Bantamweight Champion. That was a close fight, in my opinion, closer than what it could have been, but I suppose to an extent I probably should have expected it a bit more. People were saying robbery again. I hate people saying robbery, but it wasn't. Cruz is always going to be in these close fights when she's outworking opponents and but then also just standing and trading with opponents. But yet again, another gutsy performance from her and managing to become another world champion at another weight. Pacheco won by KO in round 9 versus Coqueras to remain WBC USA and WBO International Super Middleweight Champion. Pacheco, very good performance from him. I think Coqueras was definitely getting into it in them kind of more middle rounds, but Pacheco did what he had to do and reset well, and just knew that he couldn't just stand on the back foot and just work out his jab. Well, he could have done, but he could have cruised to it. It would have been a close split decision, but he did what he had to do. He turned the tempo up and really pushed it, and he got the stoppage, and that's what I want to see more from fighters, and I'm glad I saw it there. Jalolov won via KO in round 1 versus Thompson. Hadribiej won via TK in round 9 versus Molina to become WBC International Super Welterweight Champion. Nursultanov won via unanimous decision versus Alamos. Quadras won via split decision versus Guevara to become WBC Interim Super Flyweight Champion. To be fair, I don't think Quadras would get this decision victory, but I got that prediction right. And Quadras, fair play to him. It wouldn't surprise me if it sees a rematch, to be honest. Close fight, but Quadras managing to get the victory. And then moving on to the MMA news now. So Arnold will fight Evalayev January 20th. Edwards wants the winner of Duplessis versus Strickland, so he wants to move up in weight, of course, if he beats Covington first. Ankalaev will rematch Walker January 13th. Johnson won by decision versus Estevam. Ogden drew versus Mota. Perez won by decision versus Pudilova. Saragic won by KO in round 1 versus Alexander. Parkin won by decision versus Machado. Shame for Machado, spoke to him on the channel a little while ago. Duncan won via KO in round 2 versus Tululin. Johnson won by submission in round 3 versus Anhalija. Burrito won by a submission in round 2 versus Pierce. Orlbai won via submission in round 2 versus Medic. Ribas won via KO in round 3 versus Pinheiro. Talbot won via submission in round 1 versus Levitt. Moraes won via decision versus Matthews. Allen won by submission round 3 versus Craig. And Allen, great performance, really. It was another submission victory. We kind of always knew it was going to be a grappling competition between the two. And Allen just outfought him in that aspect. And to be fair, Craig got close to getting submitting him in the early, I believe, first round, but Alan just showed his class and showed that he's got that ability to be able to submit and opened up quite a few opportunities to get a submission, and he did eventually in round 3. Sterling has called out Holloway, so he wants to move up in weight, I believe. Oh no, it might. I think it's going up in weight. Chimaev has called out Pereira. He also wants to move up in weight. Everybody's moving up in weight. Chimaev, is he ever going to settle at a weight? Nobody really knows. But yeah, that is it for today's video. I hope you did enjoy. Like this if you didn't, like this. Subscribe if you're new, and thanks for watching.